Prospect Hill does not have it. John Kay at Gaymont certainly does not have it. Right. He's way up on a hill.
Right.
So we are the only one really that has that, but we allow people to come in sometimes large numbers under the auspices of the Park Service, yes.
Okay. So the others, by the others not having it, highlights even more the desire for people to see your house so they can.
Or perhaps open all of them. It's according to what the easement says.
Right, right.
Yes.
And really what I'm trying to establish is, and it goes back to what Mrs. Sneed said, I can see your house now just by riding up that road, being a law-abiding citizen, turning around and coming home.
Yes.
But wait.
Sure.
Now, if we close this road and I want to see your house, I would then have to go through the Park Service to get on their calendar to see a tour.
That's correct.
And then I would actually see your house a lot closer, be up on the grounds, which is different than trying to see it through trees. And I tried to go up Burma Road, and my car wouldn't make it. So that's another story.
You hit a pig, yeah.
No, I have a very low front bumper, so it wouldn't go up there. But
okay,
good. That was funny too. So we'll leave that alone. We'll leave the pigs alone. But really, if the whole issue is just to see your house, which, you know, you're blessed with a historic house that was here 150 years ago, so people may want to see it. If we close this road, we then have to make sure they have that opportunity.
Sure. Because
just like you have rights, I think there are going to be some other people that say they have rights too. You know, nobody wants to see my house, but I'm on Milford Street, so you can ride by and see it. So that's another story. So, all right, that's the question I have. If you'll stay right there for a second in case there are other board member questions, we'd appreciate it.
You bet.
Questions for Mr. Shelton? No questions?
I got a couple.
Go right ahead.
Okay, I guess I got a couple of questions. First for Mr. Fincham, Mr.
Sure.
Shelton, and then now. Mr. Fincham, we are looking at abandoning this property. Is this a first for Caroline, or is there some precedence for this type of issue?
No, sir. You have abandoned what formerly were state roads before. The most recent one was the street serving the Bowling Green Elementary School to actually allow the school to expand into what was a public right-of-way. Several years ago, you also abandoned a portion of Sorrel Lane. The route number escapes me at this point in time, but it was a fairly significant section of that road as well.
Okay, but the school was a little different since nobody lived on that road. There was no private home on that road.
There was a private residence, I believe, yes, sir, Mr. Taylor. That private residence, I believe, owned the majority of all that land that went back to, that ultimately was vacated or abandoned by the board.
Okay, so then they were able to get in and out of there through a different source? Or?
The cul-de-sac was moved forward. So there's still a portion of Sorrel Lane serving the property, but the portion of Sorrel Lane that was entirely within the private property of that owner was abandoned, and the cul-de-sac relocated out to the front of that property.
Okay.
He was talking about the school.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Sorrel Lane.
No, I was talking about the school at that point.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I apologize.
Okay. All right. Let me ask you this. As far as the historic register is concerned, if a house or property is listed on the historic register, what in fact does that do for that particular property? And if you want to chime in, Mr. Shelton, feel free to do so. Sure.
I think in terms of the vacation or abandonment of right-of-way, I think that's a policy decision of the board. However, if there are terms related to the historic easement on the property, I don't know that a vacation necessarily changes though, or legally would change those conditions of that historic easement. Whatever the conditions of the historic easement are still apply.
Okay, so whatever you can do now, you will still be able to do is what I'm hearing you say.
Right. The vacation of the right-of-way is a county/VDOT issue. Whatever the terms and conditions of an easement on that property, by a historic easement, conservation easement, whatever kind of easement is placed on that property, that's a term and condition of that agreement.
Okay, and I guess what I'm really getting at is if a piece of property is on the historic register, and that means that there are certain things that can happen as a result of that, whether we're talking about tours or whether we talk about tourists or whatever, if we are going to abandon the property that goes to that, how is that going to affect people visiting or people seeing, as Mr. Thomas said, riding by? And I know we talked about tours, and but just give me a little help with that, Mr. Shelton. If people did want to go by, obviously they can't go up to your house because that's your private property, and you have a fence there. Mm-hmm. But right now they can go by and look at it if they're into the history. So how are we going to address that?
I'm not totally sure I understand.
If I wanted to,
the people have the I mean, people have the right to call up the National Park Service or the county and say, here's some property I would like to tour. Insofar as the easement is concerned, the person who owns the property, it's private property, and they don't have to allow anyone to see anything.
right.
I mean, that's what the easement says.
Right.
Once a year, the Department of Historic Resources makes a check on the property to make sure that, we haven't added anything illegally or improperly or anything. But insofar as that's concerned, it makes no difference. All of these people who visited Moss Neck signed up, and they came at a given time. The gates were open. There were buses. We showed where they would park and so on. And roughly 200 people came, 120 cars, a couple of buses. So, we simply work it out. That is not a problem. The problem is the security situation and the privacy situation in which people can come by and perhaps have ill intentions, perhaps not, but that is really the problem with the property.
Okay. Mm-hmm. When you've had problems in the past with, trespassers, what have you done in the past? How have you handled it up to this point?
I'm sorry, Calvin, please say that.
If you had problems with people trespassing or creating
Yes,
issues, how
yes.
have you handled it up to this point?
Basically through the police. The police and either the AP Hill Police or the Sheriff's Office.
Okay. Is this something that happens frequently, or is it just once in a while?
Recently, it's happened more frequently, yes. Reports have been made each time. Insofar as AP Hill is concerned, if we are gone, that is, my wife and I are gone, the farm manager contacts the AP Hill Police and is on a first-name basis with about half of them. Yes.
Okay. All right, that's all I have for right now.
Mr. Akers, you had a question?
I did. Mr. Underwood has a question, then I'll answer.
Mr.
Yes, sir.
Shelton, do you have any idea how many issues of security breach that you've had or that you've had to call AP Hill? Just a rough number.
How many?
Per year?
10
per
a year.
month, per?
10 a year. The sheriff, maybe 6 or 8 within the last 2 or 3 months, maybe more.
So your biggest concern is security, is that correct?
Security and privacy, yes, sir.
Security and privacy. Okay. But wouldn't you agree also that every citizen has the same right to drive up and down that road as long as they're law abiding? Don't they have a right to do that also?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Do you agree that every citizen has a right to drive up and down that road, just like they drive up and down in front of my house? I have to worry about security.
If it's a public
as well.
road, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So your concern is the same as my concern.
Yeah.
Right? Would you agree?
Exactly.
So should I ask the county to block off in front of my house so that you can't drive in front of my house because I don't want people to pull up in my driveway?
But I would ask you this.
Okay.
Let's say 20 times in the last year, we have called the police to check out something. How many times have you called the police to check out people coming by your house?
People have driven in my driveway many times trying to get to Caroline Pines. 'Cause I live next door. So that's a everyday occurrence for me, 4 and 5 times a day, sometimes in the middle of the night that I get up because the light shines in my window. So yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
And I do appreciate
I'm just
that.
stating it's sort of a special situation.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And
I like
I
to
agree with you that you do have the right to a quality of life again. And that's why it's always
Right.
tough when you look at property rights and the rights of the public, because you don't want to abridge someone else's rights if you can help it. So
Right.
I look at it from your perspective as the property owner, saying I have a right to keep people away because it is a security issue, it is a
Right.
privacy, I should have the right to privacy. On the other hand, Reggie Underwood, the law-abiding citizen, says, I want to drive down to Moss Neck and take a look. I should have that right also, as long as I'm law-abiding. So it brings to issue other issues for AP Hill as well, and for the sheriff's office, that we again have to discuss if we can work together, because certainly there are issues. There are,
Sure.
and I hear what you're saying. So I'm looking at it from both perspectives, not just one. I agree with Ms. Need in some instances. It's a thin line there.
Yeah,
Okay, I appreciate it.
too bad.
I do. Mr. Shelton, I
Yes, sir.
guess my question is, what are you planning to do? Let's say, for instance, this board votes to abandon that road from being a public road. Do you move your gate out further onto that road?
I'm sorry, sir.
Do you move that gate further from your existing property line so that you can stop people from going any further than?
No, that is the whole idea. Otherwise, we would simply let AP Hill continue maintaining the road and spending the money to do it.
So you're going to move the gate out?
Yes, the gate would be moved down to the area in which abandonment starts, and there would be a gate there, so when people came to tour Moss Neck, they would come through that gate.
Yeah. Share with me exactly, and I see the map here, but I'm not real familiar as to where this road would stop. Where would the abandonment take place?
I'm sorry?
Where would the abandonment of the road take place?
It would take place at the point at which AP Hill is on one side of the property for the entire length of the road, and we're on the other side of the property for the entire length of the road.
But, again, I understand that, but where on the road? How far from the pig pens would it take place?
The pig pens, from 17 through up to the Y, where our property is on one side and AP Hill's on the other, is 1.3 miles.
Okay. So when you turn off of 17 onto Burma Road, I guess that is?
Yes, sir.
The hard surface road, then you sort of bear off to the right?
It's basically straight. There's a
Okay,
slight curve right there.
Okay.
And it dips down, and Ware Creek goes under a culvert on the road, and the road is 766, Burma Road is the same. And then it goes reasonably straight for 1.3 miles. There's a hill, a blind hill, I might say, and a couple of minor curves, but basically it's straight. So anybody that came up there, anyone that came there, say, to walk their dogs or whatever, and there's a lot of that,
Right.
they basically are in the 1.3 miles, and they have all the room and time in the world, and 1.3 miles times 2 is 2.6, and that's a good day's work. So it really wouldn't impede anything. It basically, I think you look at it from the point of view that the concern we have is safety and security, and I was in the military, and I have great concern about our military, just like the commander said, and this would cut off roughly 1 mile that they would not have to patrol, and it would enable them to put those resources elsewhere.
Right. I'm just trying to get into my mind as to why we think, as far as I know, there's been no breach of AP Hill, and correct me if I'm wrong, and the Colonel can correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't heard of any breach of AP Hill property. I don't know, I've heard of it for quite a while on that section of road.
I'm sorry, you haven't heard what?
Right. Breach of the AP Hill property on Burma Road.
Can we let Sheriff Lippe answer that, because he's shaking
Yeah,
his head.
I think
You
you'd have
know
to
of
ask-
a
Well, how would he
breach,
know about AP
Sheriff?
Hill? I think he may know about the county, but the Colonel would know about AP Hill better than the Sheriff would.
You know we have, Sheriff? Yes. Come on and tell us what it is. You've been here longer than the Colonel. He just got here this year, so unless somebody told him.
Yes, so we are aware that there has been issues because it is not a through traffic area that ends in the dead end of the cul-de-sac, that there have been a number of occasions where people have parked and entered onto the installation property, perhaps not found, but they have returned and been able to return to their vehicles at a later time. But we are aware that there has been different events that have occurred on AP Hill property from that portion of the road that's out there.
Since you've been here, Colonel?
I'm confused.
Colonel, since you've been at the base?
Yes, sir.
And you just got here this year?
Yes, last June.
Last June.
Just over a year ago. So about
Oh,
a
it
year
seems
and a half
like only
ago.
yesterday, okay.
Yeah.
Almost a year and a half.
Time flies.
So you'll be gone another 6
In
months?
about 6 to 8 months, yes, sir.
Wow, okay.
So you say there's been breaches since you've been here, Colonel, Lieutenant Colonel?
Yes, we are aware of events that have occurred from Burma Road onto the installation. There's a number. One of the most recent ones was a four-wheelers that were identified going onto the installation. So we're aware of that. Mr. Shelton already described the attempted suicide that was right there adjacent to the installation's property as well. And Sheriff, if you wanted to.
I mean, the four-wheelers was the thing that I was coming up with, gentlemen, because again, the property, and when we had discussed this earlier on, where they plan to, again, gate it down further, this is all Mr. Shelton's property and the hill.
Right.
And, you know, when you're talking about going down this roadway, there's really no reason for anyone to go down there because they don't own any property there. You got AP Hill there. And when we heard of the four-wheelers and we heard again of them breaching AP Hill, that's what got my concern up to say, why does somebody need to go down there? And as I prefaced earlier with Mrs. Sneed, they're not keeping access from people if they want to see it historically. You make the appointment, you go there. There are other places in the county that we can't go see that are in the Historical Society. So again, the breach, the safety, the security of what we have.
But in that respect, though, Sheriff, the responsibility for security there then falls upon us as the county. Is that correct?
No.
When someone's going down the road,
Correct.
and they haven't, I'm on my four-wheeler, I'm driving down the road. At that point, I haven't done anything other than drive a four-wheeler down the road, down a county road. Is
Which
that
would
correct?
be illegal,
Okay.
because you can't put a four-wheeler on a public
It's
highway.
a state road, but he's driving his motorcycle. Same
Right.
thing.
Let's say I'm driving a
That's
motorcycle
okay.
then.
Right?
And your
Why
point-
should I not be able to drive down that road? I guess you're saying that no one has a reason to go down that road. I'm going down that road because I want to go. That's a reason enough.
Mr. Underwood, again, what they're asking for were my security reasons and everything else that come in there. No different. To me, we're not comparing apples to apples. It's no different to where I live. People can come by my house. That's
Right.
okay. If I owned all this property and you're coming through my property because of the road, and again, from when, before Mr. Shelton bought this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, he owns all of that property there. That road was there because there was 300-plus acres that somebody else could have bought. Well, he owns it all.
So he bought it, okay.
So there's really no reason for anyone to go down there, is my point, which concerns me
now-
for the hill.
okay, now it kinda makes sense. All right,
Okay.
so if I'm hearing you correctly, I think that kind of takes me on a different path then. All the property, when Mr. Shelton brought the property, the fact that it was a county road was an issue then, really, because no one really had a need to go down there other than you and your family, basically. Is that correct, Mr. Shelton? Okay, that makes sense.
But on the note of, you know, just like things, if you own a historic property, it's a lot more about what you can't do. You know, you can't paint the doors red, you can't, you know, do silly things like that, you can't have Mickey Mouse, you know, blinds on it. So you have a responsibility. And that probably comes at some cost to you. But having that same responsibility, you know that people want to see your house because it has some historic, you know, significance. Mrs. Sneed has said she wants to see it just to walk by. You know, the historic mansion here in Bowling Green, it's got a gate up front. You can't drive in there. You can't drive on their property, but you could ride by and see it and say, I saw the historic property in Bowling Green at Washington.
And they have a right to do that, Mr. Chairman, including touring the property, seeing the cemetery, which is out of sight.
Your property you're talking about now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. They have, they can make an appointment and get on the grounds and not just drive by or peer or come. Some of the traffic that comes by after dark. And this, they're not looking at the house at that point. Well, those are the ones that are concerning.
And I agree with you.
And very concerning.
And I agree with you a lot.
Okay.
If somebody's on that road at night,
Yeah,
they probably can't see your house.
right,
So the odds are they'd be up to no good.
yeah.
But you know, it's kind of, as we said before, it's kind of you have the right to your privacy, but because you have this historic house, other people believe they have a right to view it because of its, you know, significance in American history.
But the question is, you know, do they? We have the right of privacy. We have the same rights that you do, exactly the same rights that you do, of privacy, of peaceful existence,
Right.
of security, and so on.
Right.
We happen to be a little bit more difficult, we're more removed, insofar as security is concerned.
You have to be a lot more well off. So, because I don't have 300 acres that I could buy to add on to whatever else I had. But,
Yeah.
but the point is, because you have accumulated such land, it's impossible to see your house from a normal public road. And what you're saying, that's not your fault. It's just
No.
a statement of fact. But what you're saying is, for those who really want to take advantage of that particular view, call the National Park Service and they can have a tour.
Certainly.
Or I imagine that there are times when you have the front gate open and people could just ride in and ride out.
No. Just like your house, we don't do it. You leave your front door open, you don't come in and go out.
I leave the gate to the main street open all the time because I don't have
Well,
a
I'm
gate.
coming in, I'm coming in.
I don't have a gate. Don't get so close. All right. And really, we just want to. This is not an easy issue because it's a property owner right, and it's a citizen right to say that's a historic property. You know, Mrs. Sneed may not be related to General Jackson, but I'm sure there are people who say, you know, my father served with him or whatever. I want to be able to see where he was in the winter.
Sure.
You know,
Well,
and they'll make tours through your group to see it.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And also, I might just comment,
I think
it's famous for its architecture. The architecture is antebellum, it's a Greek revival, and that's the thing that's famous. insofar as the Civil War is concerned, General Jackson was there for about 3 months. The Union was there afterwards, after General Jackson went to Chancellorsville, and so therefore both the North and the South have occupied it. Have nothing to do with the house. There was never any destruction by either side. It was always highly respected, and so it's known for its architecture, though it's one of like 3 that have that kind of architecture in Virginia. And according to Kathleen Kilpatrick, the head of DHR, she said it's a good example of antebellum Greek revival.
Let's put a picture of the house on. Let's put a picture of the house on the fence. So let's put a picture of the house on the fence.
I can do that.
Mr. Akers, you had a question, and then we're going to finalize this matter.
I just have a question about, and I understand that you would be in agreement to go into some type of agreement with AP Hill, whereas they could get through the gate if they needed to get emergency service vehicles over to their property. But how would that be passed on to the next owner?
Through recording on the deed.
Okay, so you would do that?
And we will do that. Yes, sir.
How about the turnaround that was mentioned by Jervis Harrison?
I'm sorry, say that again?
The turnaround that was mentioned earlier.
The turnaround we leave up to VDOT.
So you would not put a turnaround there?
Mike Dotze. Well, there's a turnaround. People turn around in driveways and so on, but we rely upon VDOT to define it and to design it.
But on the other hand, we can rely on the sheriff's office to correct any problems that you may have. If you've got somebody coming and turning around in your gate, you should be calling the sheriff's office, right?
I'm sorry, if they came...
You should be calling the sheriff's office and complaining if someone's turning around your gate.
No, we cannot see we can't see the gate, but my point is people turn around all the time. We have school buses that turn around in our driveway, and we let them do it. And so that's never a problem. Okay. All of these things, I mean, we are so agreeable and so easy to get along with the public, with school buses and so on, that it's ridiculous. So we never have any problems like that.
Thank you, Mr. Shelton.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Board and Mr. Shelton.
Yes, sir.
And this is just a summary. I had some concerns, and my concern, to be honest, was quite what Mr. Sneed had said. But hearing the sheriff with the situation and also the colonel, and we are living in a time that's pretty frightening. Things are happening that never happened before. And so we do have to take those things into consideration. If we're saying that people who want to see this property will be able to see it if they go through the right channels,
yes, sir,
then I assume then that we've settled that issue. So having said that, I would move that we pass the resolution as presented, if I can get a second.
Second.
Motion would be to continue the abandonment of Route 766 Burma Road. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Nay. And it has nothing to do with anything other than I just don't believe that we should be cutting off roads. I could ask for the same thing. I live on a cul-de-sac, and I can assure you people pull in my driveway, even though I have a no trespassing sign at the end of my driveway, they still pull in and back up and move around, and I cannot do that, and I just don't believe it's something we should start doing for supposedly security reasons and convenience reasons.
Division.
Oh, without a doubt. You can have a seat, Mr. Shelton. You can have a seat if you like.
Okay.
And the motion what, Mr. Chairman?
Excuse me?
The motion carried, the motion failed, the motion...
There is division, and I was taking the moment to contemplate.
Okay.
Mr. Black, how do you vote on the motion?
Aye.
Mr. Seeley?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Nay.
Mr. Akers?
Nay.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
If I vote nay, the motion fails, which we wouldn't have anything to do. I would like to have a compromise, some kind of way that we could work them both out. I understand Mrs. Sneed's perspective, and I appreciate that, and would like to satisfy that as the casual rider by. You know, like I said, I tried to casually ride by myself. My car didn't like the road. But how do I see that property if I'm a private citizen and I want to see it? I guess I would have to go through that. It's definitely not a Fort Hood situation, so whoever said that, that's definitely not the issue, because that was all internal. We have had breaches with four-wheelers, recreational vehicles, normal trespassing. I don't think there are any claymores in that area, but because if they were, that would stop all that and wouldn't be a good thing anyhow. But I'm gonna vote aye in favor of the motion. We'll close the road and we'll have to go with private ways to see the house like the others. Bless you. So the motion carries 4-2. All right. That takes care of agenda item number 3. You okay? Yes, sir. I'm going to ask if we can move to 5, and we'll come back to 4, which is the text amendments on property managers. So 5 was the proposed amendment for Chapter 56 of the Code of Caroline, hunting. And I lost, there we are. Okay, we've got a couple of people from the state. Is Mr. Gray back there? Got him, okay. Thank you, Mr. Gray. Mr. Parton, go right ahead.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm just going to provide a little background, and we do have some experts here tonight to answer the board's questions. As you know, Mr. Gary Gray has asked that the board consider amending the county's ordinance related to hunting to allow the use of rifles. The current county ordinance was adopted in 1989 and prohibits the use of rifles larger than .22 caliber. We do permit the use of muzzle-loading rifles only during state-prescribed open hunting season for deer hunting. The hunting of groundhogs with rifles larger than .22 caliber is permitted, except during general open season for hunting game animals with firearms. So that's, to give you a little background, that's what the current county ordinance says, which was adopted in 1989. Copies in your board packet. If you do wish to consider amending the ordinance, it appears that you have a number of options. One is to simply repeal the ordinance and follow state firearm restrictions. And if you look in your board packet, there's a page, 3 or 4 pages in there actually marked general information with down the left-hand side of the page. If you look at page 20 at the bottom left of that page, there's an excerpt from the guide that's published each year by Game and Inland Fisheries. And what that tells you, as I understand it anyway, is exactly the list of firearms and archery tackle that would be legal in the county if you repeal the current county ordinance and revert it to state regulations. There are also many other options available in the same publication, pages 23 through 25, which again is in your packet. There are 82 examples of regulations from other localities. You could choose one of those if you so desire. Finally, there are, my understanding is the Board of Directors of Game and Inland Fisheries was asked by the General Assembly to come up with model ordinances for counties to consider. There are 8 of those, I believe, and they too, a copy of that is included in your ordinance. We do have with us tonight Joe Dietrich, who, if I heard correctly, was a game warden for 38 years prior to retiring in the last few years, I believe. He's here tonight to answer some of the questions that came up last time and any other questions you may have. We do have Sergeant Schuler is here from Game and Inland Fisheries also, and he may be able to help as well.
Thank you, Mr. Parton. All right, board members have any questions at this time? No questions? You want to just abandon our our ordinance and follow the state, which is what we do on a lot of other things.
And Mr. Chairman, I think that is one of the options that Game and Inland Fisheries can explain. There are so many contingents here that when I started to read them, I was just like, how do you, it's like Chinese menu, 2 from column A and 2 from column B. I'd just like to hear Game and Inland Fisheries explain how this gets set up, what they do, and how this proceeds.
Okay, well, the sergeant and I had a chance to chat outside before he knew who I was and before I knew who he was. Would you like to speak to us, Sergeant, or would you like to defer to Mr. Gray? Mr. Gray, I understand that you're on the board of Game and Inland Fisheries. So you weren't really coming to us as a private citizen. You had some insight to it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would you like to make a statement or give us your idea right now? Feel free to come forward.
I can give you these where each person can have a copy. Bob Duncan, who is I'm Gary Gray. I'm in the Bowling Green District, and I had Bob Duncan with the Virginia Department of Game prepare a position that the Game Department has on the safety of hunting with rifles as compared to shotguns. And the safety level with rifles is considerably higher. So if you move forward, rifles are a very good mechanism for deer hunting in a safe manner. Give you a little history. I was appointed by the governor to the Department of Game. I represent the 1st Congressional District, which covers Caroline and several other counties. Probably one of the #1 problems we experience in hunting today is the image that hunting portrays. People in the road with guns chasing dogs, and really in a public perspective, you as supervisors probably get more complaints about that type of image than somebody that's away, quiet, private, and not creating a problem. So this is kind of a move to clean up the image of hunting. It's great because if you got your child driving to school and a deer runs out in the road and hits it, all of a sudden you don't love a deer quite as much as you used to. So hunting is a good mechanism for management, and it works very well. From a position of experience, I've been involved in hunting. I'm a life member of NRA. I'm a member of the Safari Club International. Hunted and fished in about 15 states and probably about 20 countries. Recently introduced to rifles as compared to shotguns, and rifles are designed for precision shooting. Well, if you take a shotgun out today, which is legal to shoot with, it throws many projectiles in different directions. So from a safety standpoint, it's not the safest. But I'm not here to ask you to outlaw shotguns. I'm saying please approve rifles, which are currently used in Henrico County, Spotsylvania County, Stafford County, Middlesex, Gloucester, and with very good success. I've been in contact with Sheriff Tony Lipper to see what the position of the Sheriff's Department was, and I have their full support. When they look at the safety record, they think that it's a move in a positive direction. I actually have Ryan Schuler here, who's a sergeant with Virginia Department of Game, and he oversees several of the game wardens. And any technical questions that I can't handle, I've got him as a backup to answer for you. Also have Paul Atkins here, who is a game warden who lives in Caroline County and very experienced with hunting and fishing and trapping, and I'm sure he'll be glad to answer any questions. And I've got several other citizens here that are very much in favor of moving forward with rifle hunting in Caroline to kind of mirror the state image. I also brought some ammo with me if any of the board members would like to see truly what is allowed to be used in the county today, so you can see the difference between that and what I'm asking for the permission to be used. So if anybody's interested, I'd be glad to take it out. I'd be glad to show it to you and glad to explain the ballistics of how these bullets work and what we're currently using and what we're asking for to be used.
Okay. I'm not sure we need to see ammo.
We don't have anything here that it fits.
I could hit it with a hammer and it would go off. Just the difference of 223 shell, because there was some discussion before the sergeant, I had this discussion outside. 223 shell, which is what would be used in an AR-15,
Correct.
is not allowed by state law.
It's not allowed for deer hunting.
Not allowed for deer hunting.
Right.
Okay.
In Caroline County today, if I'm getting ready to head off on a prairie dog hunt to South Dakota, and I want to take a 223 out and practice, I can practice with anything. Whether it's an AR-15 or a precision custom-built gun that's designed to shoot a prairie dog at 600 yards. So each device is designed for a certain job.
Right.
Mostly the military uses something that has high capacity magazines for their safety. But a hunter is really designed to try to make the first shot the most effective shot.
One shot,
and it's all about ethics.
It's gone after that.
Right.
Okay. And again, I've had the benefit of talking to the sergeant outside that the other board members may not have, but if we were to follow the state code, allow rifles, but put the caveat of rifles only used from a tree stand, so you're shooting down, and that would take away the, if I just fired a rifle like this, it could go quite a distance. Or if, as described, I'm in a low place and I'm trying to shoot a deer up on a hill, and I can't see anymore, so if I miss, I don't know where that particular round is going.
Well, I agree with that 100%, other than a few exceptions.
Okay.
Somebody like Don Pitts, who climbs up in the tree stand, he falls out of it, breaks a leg, messes his back up in the hospital for 6 months for recovery, and he decides he wants to go hunting, but he really doesn't want to climb a tree stand and jeopardize his safety. If you look at most of the accidents that occur with rifles today, all of them will really occur with bringing a gun from a tree stand down to the ground and the mishandling of that firearm. So I'm saying that if you feel comfortable and you're in good shape, the best hunter will always climb a tree stand because it gives him the greatest visibility and it eliminates his smell as far as the deer is concerned.
Right.
Well, the guy that has a little age on him who can't climb a tree stand gets penalized, and I'm not out to penalize him, so I'm out to educate. Educators always look at your backdrop. You don't want to ever take a shot at anything that you don't clearly understand what your backdrop is. In Caroline County today, we can go squirrel hunt with a .22 rifle. If a squirrel's in a tree and you're on the ground and you fire that shot and miss him, then you got that bullet flying through the air. That's okay. In rifle hunting, if I'm standing on the ground and I'm shooting a projectile out, after that projectile passes 300 yards, basically because of its weight and velocity, it begins to fall. And by the time it reaches 500 yards, it's probably in the ground anyhow. So I understand your concern, but realistically, you're looking at a deer as a target or a coyote as a target, and those targets are low to the ground, so you're not firing projectiles into the air. They're normally at a ground level, 3 feet above the ground. But from my standpoint, I recommend everybody that's deer hunting to climb a stand. But if you're coyote hunting, you're not going to be on the stand. You're going to be moving from place to place and setting up callers and setting up your blind areas to do whatever's necessary to try to do your predator hunting.
Okay. Questions?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have a couple. Maybe this is for have we been inundated with emails or stuff on changing it, or is this the first time that we saw? Is this the only one that we received to change the county code?
Mr. Gray actually came to us last year.
Right, and it was too late. It was too late to get it into the code. But have we? I mean, I have not received any. Minus Mr. Gray's email, have we received? And Mr. Cully, have you received any? It's not been forwarded to us.
I'm not aware of any. I think a hunt club came after this matter came up last year. Some members spoke to the board, but we haven't received any mail or email on it.
Okay. And the next thing, on a rifle itself, what is, and you had mentioned the yardage and so forth, what is, just out of curiosity, one of these rifles, and I'm not a hunter, so I'm going to be maybe ignorant.
You want an education on what you can hunt with from a rifle standpoint?
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, if I shoot and miss, like I'm going deer hunting and I'm hunting from the ground, and I miss, how far is that rifle bullet going to travel?
Well,